If you buy the wrong Toyota truck in 2026, the mistake usually doesn't show up on the test drive. It shows up after the paperwork is signed, after the warranty clock starts ticking, and right when you finally relax and think you made the smart choice. That's when the engine starts knocking, the transmission starts acting weird, or the frame underneath that bulletproof truck turns into a rusted-out nightmare that can drain your bank account faster than a blown turbo. So let me ask you right now, and be honest in the comments. Have you ever trusted a badge more than the actual vehicle? Or is there a Toyota truck you still believe is worth every dollar in 2026? Because that right there is the trap. And Toyota might be the biggest trap of all when you shop with your memory instead of with your eyes. A lot of buyers still walk into the market thinking every Toyota truck is automatically safe, automatically dependable, automatically worth paying extra for. And that's exactly how people get burned. They're not buying the truck in front of them, they're buying a reputation from 10 or 15 years ago. They're buying stories from uncles, friends, mechanics, and old forum posts about how Toyota trucks run forever. But here's the scary part. A truck can have a legendary name and still be the wrong buy in 2026. And when you overpay because of that badge, every problem hits harder. If you buy a questionable truck cheap, that hurts. If you buy a questionable Toyota at a premium because you thought you were avoiding problems, that hurts twice. You lose money up front, and then you lose it again when the hidden flaws show up. That's why this video matters, because today we're talking about Toyota trucks you should avoid in 2026, not because every single one is junk, but because some of them carry risks that too many buyers either ignore or never see coming until it's too late. And we have to start with the truck that shocked a lot of Toyota loyalists, the 2022 to 2024 Toyota Tundra. This is where the old Toyota assumption can cost you real money. Toyota's official safety recall filings say certain 2022 to 2024 Tundras with the V35A engine were built during a production period where machining debris may not have been fully cleared from the engine during manufacturing. That debris can contaminate the engine assembly, damage the crankshaft main bearings over time, and lead to engine knocking, rough running, no start conditions, or worst of all, an engine stall while driving that causes a loss of motive power. And if you're hearing that and thinking, okay, but maybe it's just a tiny issue, Toyota's own filing says it could not estimate the true percentage affected and only entered 1 because the system required an integer, with Toyota clarifying that 1 effectively meant unknown. Think about how terrifying that is for a used buyer. You're not shopping with perfect clarity. You're shopping around a problem that could be invisible until the day it isn't. That means a truck can sound okay, drive okay, even look pristine on the lot, and still carry the kind of engine risk that turns a premium purchase into a trust exercise you may not want to take. And this is where people make the expensive mistake. They hear the word recall and assume it means problem solved. Not always. Sometimes it means problem identified. Sometimes it means interim notice sent. Sometimes it means the truck you want has a history that's only half documented. Or the owner before you ignored symptoms. Or the truck got sold around before the fix was completed. Or the remedy arrived after damage had already begun. And yes, you can check the VIN. And yes, you should absolutely do that. But even then, the bigger issue is confidence. Why are you paying top-tier used truck money to gamble on whether a twin-turbo V6 that's already been linked to bearing contamination is one of the good ones? That's the part most buyers don't say out loud. They're not just paying for transportation, they're paying for peace of mind. And if peace of mind is the whole reason you stretched your budget for a Toyota, then a truck with a major engine controversy is already failing the most important test before you even turn the key. This is especially brutal in 2026 because used truck prices may still make people rationalize crazy decisions. They'll say, well, the deal is decent, or it only has 28,000 miles, or the dealer says it runs perfect. Sure, until it doesn't. And when modern full-size truck repairs go bad, they don't go bad for $400. They go bad for thousands, sometimes many thousands. And it gets worse because the more complex the truck, the more expensive the downside. Turbos, hybrid systems, sensors, software, advanced infotainment, electronic assists, all of that can be great when it works, but when you're buying used, complexity is not your friend. It's hidden liability with a shiny grille. And before someone says, yeah, but that's just the engine story, no, that's exactly why the newer Tundra can be such a risky buy for the wrong person in 2026. It's not just one isolated fear, it's the pattern of early redesign pain. Toyota also announced a 2026 recall involving certain 2020 5 Tundra and Tundra hybrid models where the multimedia display could become stuck on a camera view or display a black image, meaning the rear view image might not display while reversing, which increases crash risk and required a software update. Now, by itself, a screen-related recall is not the end of the world. Software gets updated all the time. But stack that on top of the engine drama, and you start seeing the real issue. This isn't the old-school, low-drama Tundra image buyers still carry around in their heads. This is a newer, more complicated truck platform where you absolutely cannot shop on nostalgia. You have to shop on documentation, repair history, recall status, and a willingness to walk away. If you're the kind of buyer who hates uncertainty, hates dealership visits, hates wondering whether an expensive machine is about to throw you a nasty surprise, then some of these newer Tundras are not the safe harbor you think they are. They might still work out fine for some owners, and plenty do, but that's not the standard you should use when you're trying to avoid the wrong truck. The standard is simple. If you have to talk yourself into the risk, you probably shouldn't buy it. Now let's move to the Toyota truck that tricks people in a completely different way, because this one doesn't always fail with noise, lights, or a dramatic breakdown. Sometimes it fails quietly, underneath you, while the body still looks good enough to make you think you found a deal. I'm talking about the 2011 to 2017 Toyota Tacoma. Especially trucks from cold climate, salt-heavy regions where frame corrosion became such a serious issue that Toyota issued a limited service campaign. Toyota's own documentation says it received reports of frame corrosion perforation on 2011 to 2017. Tacomas operated in specific cold climate areas with high road salt usage, and if significant perforation was found, the frame could be replaced free of charge under the associated support program. If not, dealers could apply corrosion-resistant compound and install frame plugs. Read that again and really think about it. We're not talking about a little cosmetic rust on a bumper bracket. We're talking about the frame, the structure, the part that holds the entire truck together. And this is where used buyers get smoked, because frame problems are the kind of thing you often discover after you're emotionally invested, after you've driven the truck, after you pictured it in your driveway, maybe after you've convinced yourself that because it's a Tacoma, any concern must be overblown. That is exactly how people overpay for rust. And here's what makes that Tacoma situation especially nasty in 2026. A lot of these trucks still command insane money because Tacoma resale values are almost a religion at this point. People see 150,000 miles and still talk like they're shopping a future heirloom. Sellers know it. Dealers know it. Private owners know it. Everybody knows the Tacoma tax is real. But the Tacoma tax becomes a disaster when you're paying a premium for a truck that may already have corrosion history, corrosion treatment, or corrosion damage hiding underneath fresh cleanup, undercoating, dirt, or just the seller's very convenient lack of knowledge. And yes, some of these trucks were inspected or repaired years ago. Some got the treatment. Some got frame replacements. Some are totally fine. But that's exactly why you have to be ruthless. If the seller can't prove what happened, then you're the one taking the risk. And frame risk is the worst kind of used truck risk because it doesn't care how good the paint looks, how clean the seats are, or how confidently the seller says, it's just surface rust. Buyers hear that phrase all the time, and sometimes it's true, but sometimes surface rust is just code for, please don't get under the truck with a flashlight and ruin this deal. If you live in or buy from the Rust Belt, if the truck spent years seeing road salt, if the underside looks suspiciously dressed up right before sale, if you notice flaky scaling, compromised mounting points, or corrosion around critical areas, you should not be trying to convince yourself it's okay because the truck says Toyota on the tailgate. That's not how smart buying works. That's how expensive denial works. And the painful part is that the Tacoma's reputation actually makes this worse. If this were some random truck with a weaker image, buyers would be skeptical immediately. But because it's a Tacoma, people lower their guard. They start excusing things they would never excuse on another brand. They ignore how much framework can cost. They ignore how hard it is to verify the long-term integrity of a rusty structure. They ignore how much suspension, alignment, safety, and resale value all depend on what's happening underneath the truck where nobody takes glamour photos. And sellers love that. A clean wash, some tire shine, a few accessories, maybe a bed rack or off-road tires, and suddenly a buyer is thinking about lifestyle instead of liabilities. They're imagining trails, camping, road trips, maybe a little overlanding fantasy. But here's the dark reality. Rust does not care about your overland build. Corrosion does not care about your rooftop tent. A compromised frame can turn the coolest-looking Tacoma into the dumbest financial decision you make all year. That's why if you're shopping Tacoma in 2026, especially older ones that spent time in salted states, your inspection should start underneath, not in the driver's seat. If you do it in the opposite order, you're setting yourself up to fall in love with something you should have walked away from in the first 5 minutes. Now let's talk about the other Tacoma you should approach with serious caution in 2026, and that's the 2024 Toyota Tacoma, especially automatic trucks that fall into the first-wave redesign risk zone. First-year redesigns always attract hype. New styling, new powertrains, new tech, new interior, better efficiency, more features. Everyone gets excited. And then real owners start driving them in the real world, and the honeymoon ends. One of the more talked about issues on the 2024 Tacoma involved its automatic transmission, with reporting on a Toyota technical service bulletin saying the problem stemmed from faulty actuators causing error codes and shifting issues, and that the fix called for replacing the automatic transmission assembly and torque converter. That is not the kind of sentence you want associated with a nearly new truck that people were buying specifically because they thought Toyota would be the safest bet in the segment. And again, the danger for you as a buyer is timing. By 2026, there will absolutely be people trying to unload first-year trucks for perfectly normal reasons. Maybe they want something bigger. Maybe they want better MPG. Maybe they're just bored. But there will also be people quietly trying to get out of a truck that annoyed them, worried them, or made them lose confidence. And if you don't know how to separate those two sellers, guess who becomes the test pilot after the fact? You do. This is why first-year trucks are so dangerous for average buyers. Not because every single unit is bad, not because every owner gets stranded, but because the margin for error is small and the information asymmetry is huge. The seller knows how it behaved on cold starts. The seller knows if it hesitated climbing a hill. The seller knows whether the transmission ever hunted for gears, jerked, flared, slammed, or lit up a warning. The seller knows whether they were back at the dealer more than they expected. You don't know any of that unless you find it in the records or feel it in the drive, and by then it may only show up intermittently. That's the kind of problem that makes modern vehicles so frustrating to buy used. They can be glitchy without being obviously broken. They can be fine right now and still be the wrong truck. And when it's a brand new generation with more software, more electronics, and more systems talking to each other, fine right now is not the same thing as proven. In fact, that may be the most expensive misunderstanding in the whole used market. People think low miles equal low risk. Not always. Low miles on an immature platform can just mean the story hasn't fully unfolded yet. And when the truck still carries a strong resale premium, you're effectively paying extra to absorb uncertainty. That is not a flex. That is a gamble dressed up like a smart buy. And if you think I'm being too harsh on the newer Tacoma, here's where it gets more uncomfortable. Consumer Reports' 2025 Tacoma Reliability page says the reliability score is based on subscriber survey data and shows problem areas spanning in-car electronics, body hardware, engine major, electrical accessories, drive system, brakes, suspension and steering, climate system, exhaust, engine electrical, transmission major, transmission minor, noises and leaks, engine minor, engine cooling, and fuel system, and emissions. The same page also shows the 2025 Tacoma has been recalled 3 times by NHTSA. Now, that does not mean every 2025 Tacoma is a disaster. It does mean the simple old narrative of just buy the newest Tacoma and relax is not serious thinking anymore. These trucks are more complex, more expensive, and more dependent on proper execution than the older era people keep romanticizing. So, if you're shopping 2024 or 2025 Tacoma in 2026 and you're telling yourself, it's a Toyota, what could go wrong? The answer is plenty. Enough that you should slow down, verify everything, and stop treating the badge like an insurance policy. And by the way, if this video is already helping you avoid a five-figure mistake, do yourself a favor and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stick around because this channel is built for one thing, helping you spend less time regretting vehicles and more time enjoying the right ones. And the Tundra doesn't get a free pass here either. Consumer Reports 2025 Tundra Reliability page lists owner-reported problem areas across in-car electronics, body hardware, exhaust, brakes, fuel system and emissions, electrical accessories, drive system, suspension, and steering, engine, major, climate system, transmission, major, transmission, minor, engine, minor, paint and trim, noises and leaks, engine cooling, and engine electrical. Again, that doesn't automatically condemn every 2025 Tundra. But it absolutely reinforces the central warning of this whole video. The Toyota truck market in 2026 has traps, and the biggest one is pretending the newest, most expensive, most tech-loaded Toyota truck is automatically the smartest buy. Sometimes the newest truck is the one with the most unanswered questions. Sometimes the expensive truck is the risky truck. Sometimes the truck everybody wants is the one you should let somebody else beat a test for another couple of years. That's the kind of thinking that saves you money. Because real ownership isn't a brochure. Real ownership is what happens after 6 months, after 12 months, after the excitement wears off, after the first weird symptom, after the first dealership shrug, after the first time you realize your safe choice might not have been safe at all. So, if we're being brutally honest, the Toyota trucks I'd be very careful about in 2026 are not the ones people expect. They're the ones hiding behind the strongest reputations. A 2022 to 2024 Tundra without crystal-clear documentation on recall status, service history, and current condition is a truck I would think twice about because engine-related uncertainty is exactly the kind of risk that can turn a premium-priced truck into a premium-sized headache. A 2011 to 2017 Tacoma, from a salt-heavy state without solid proof of inspection history, corrosion treatment, or frame condition, is a truck I would not touch casually because structural corrosion can destroy value and confidence at the same time. And a 2024 Tacoma automatic that shows any sign of transmission weirdness, vague shift behavior, unresolved service visits, or seller defensiveness is a truck I would walk away from faster than most buyers do because first-year redesign problems are where you end up paying new school money for old school lessons. Not because Toyota can't build great trucks, they absolutely can, but because the wrong Toyota truck is dangerous precisely because people assume it must be right. And here's another costly mistake buyers make that almost nobody admits on camera. They shop for pain relief, not for truth. They've had bad luck with another brand, so they run straight to Toyota for emotional safety. They don't slow down and ask whether this specific Toyota is actually a safe buy. They just want the anxiety to stop. They want to believe they found the answer. That makes them vulnerable. A truck salesman doesn't need you to be informed. He just needs you to be relieved. Private sellers don't need you to know every platform issue. They just need you to feel like you're finally buying the reliable one. That's why you have to separate the brand story from the truck story. The brand story says, Toyota trucks last forever. The truck story says, this exact VIN might have a recall history, corrosion risk, transmission behavior, or electronic gremlins that say otherwise. The brand story is what gets people in trouble. The truck story is what saves them. And you know what else burns buyers in 2026? The money stack. It's never just the truck price. It's the financing, the taxes, the fees, the insurance, the tires, the maintenance catch-up, the accessories, the fuel, and the surprise repair you swear won't happen because it's a Toyota. The minute that surprise repair shows up, the whole budget gets uglier. The reason I keep hammering this is simple. A lot of people can survive overpaying a little. Very few people enjoy overpaying and then inheriting a major mechanical or structural issue. That's where resentment starts. That's where you go from loving your truck to scrolling forums at midnight trying to figure out whether the sound you heard is normal. That's where you start wishing you had spent less, inspected harder, and ignored the hype. And that's why the used Toyota truck market can be more dangerous than it looks. It's not just about whether a truck will fail. It's about whether the risk makes sense for the money. And with some of these trucks, especially the ones we're talking about today, the answer is no, not at the price people keep asking. So, what should you do if you're still shopping Toyota in 2026 and you don't want to get wrecked by somebody else's problem? First, stop chasing the myth and start chasing paperwork. If the seller can't show recall completion, service records, and a believable ownership story, it's already a warning. Second, inspect the underside like your money depends on it, because it does. Rust, corrosion treatment, suspicious fresh coatings, compromised hardware, and ugly frame areas matter more than leather condition and touchscreen size. Third, do a cold start whenever possible, not just a warm, polished, dealer-ready drive. Fourth, on newer trucks, pay attention to shifting quality, hesitation, warning lights, strange noises, and whether the seller starts talking too much when you ask simple questions. Overselling is often compensation. Fifth, use the VIN and check official recall resources because hoping is not due diligence. And sixth, be willing to walk away from a great deal if your gut says the truck has a story the seller is not fully telling. Walking away costs nothing. Buying wrong can cost you years of annoyance. The crazy thing is, some of the smartest buyers in 2026 are not the people buying the flashiest truck. They're the ones buying the truck with the fewest unanswered questions. That might mean you pass on a newer Tundra that looks incredible because you don't like the engine uncertainty. That might mean you reject a Tacoma with perfect paint because the underside tells a different story. That might mean you skip the first-year redesign entirely and let the market sort itself out while you keep your cash. And yes, that can feel boring in the moment. But boring is underrated when you're the one making the payments. Boring is good when you need your truck to start every morning. Boring is great when you're not standing in a service lane being told your reliable truck needs something you did not budget for. Excitement sells trucks. Boring ownership keeps money in your pocket. And I know some of you watching own these trucks and have had no issues at all. That's real. There are owners out there with great 2022 to 2024 Tundras, great 2011 to 2017 Tacomas, and great 2024 Tacomas. No question. But this video is not about whether a good one exists. It's about what you should avoid if your goal is to reduce risk in 2026. Those are two completely different conversations. You can absolutely find a good example in a risky group. People do it all the time. The problem is that most buyers don't know how to verify what they're looking at, and the Toyota badge gives them false confidence. That false confidence is what I'm trying to save you from, because the market doesn't reward blind trust. It punishes it. So, when someone asks me what Toyota trucks you should avoid in 2026, my answer is simple. Avoid the Tundra years where you have to play detective around major engine concerns and pretend that paying top dollar for uncertainty is somehow smart. Avoid the Tacoma years where rust can turn a beloved legend into a structural liability hiding under a clean body. Avoid the first wave, first-year excitement buys where the bugs haven't fully shaken out and you're still paying a premium for the privilege of finding out what the forums will be talking about 6 months later. And above all, avoid buying any Toyota truck the same lazy way people bought Toyotas 10 years ago because the market, the technology, and the risks are not the same anymore. That's the warning. That's the whole point. The worst Toyota truck in 2026 is not necessarily the oldest one, the cheapest one, or the highest mile one. It's the one that makes you feel safe when you haven't actually verified anything. That's the truck that gets you. That's the truck that empties your wallet while you're still telling your friends you bought the smart option. Don't let the badge hypnotize you. Don't let resale value talk you out of common sense. Don't let a seller's confidence replace your inspection. And definitely don't let old Toyota legends make new Toyota problems feel impossible, because that's how buyers get blindsided. If you're shopping right now, move carefully, check everything, and remember this: one rushed decision can lock you into years of payments on a truck you no longer trust. And once trust is gone, the whole ownership experience is ruined. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and if you care about protecting your money, watch the next video before you buy anything, because the trucks people hype the hardest are often the ones that hide the most.